Israel is out. Governor Ron DeSantis back in South Florida, shaking things up at BSO. We'll hear his reasons for making the change and how the now suspended sheriff and Parkland parents are responding.
Police searching for a missing teen who may be with a man wanted in a triple shooting. The connection between the teen and the shooting victims.
Plus, new warnings about those free trials you see advertised online. Find out how these so-called risk-free trials are costing consumers.
Live, the news on NBC 6 at 6 starts now.
This is a new day. It's a chance to take a step forward.
This was about politics, not about Parkland.
I am not here for any type of political, grandiose, or agenda. I'm here to serve.
A sheriff suspended. Governor Ron DeSantis making the move just in the last hour, ousting Scott Israel from the Broward Sheriff's Office. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jackie Nesbrough.
And I'm Keith Jones. Thank you for being with us. But it was delayed today because of a problem with the governor's plane. DeSantis was forced to make an emergency stop in St. Petersburg on his way to BSO headquarters.
We have team coverage of today's announcement, from the man taking over to how the ousted sheriff is reacting and what the Parkland parents are saying about the move.
But we begin with NBC6 investigator Willard Shepard. He was at the governor's announcement. Willard?
Well, good evening to you, Keith, here from the BSO headquarters that now has a new sheriff in town, so to speak. This has been a long time coming. We've been hearing for weeks and actually months that the former sheriff Scott Israel might actually be suspended, and then it comes to fruition just a few days after the new governor took office. Governor Ron DeSantis, once he got here on the ground, got over those airplane problems that delayed this today, said that he really made up his mind right when he was getting inaugurated up in Tallahassee that he was going to take this action, and he basically just said that too many things had happened during Parkland and what the reports had shown to him, that there was a problem at the leadership of the top of the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and he took that action to remove former Sheriff Scott Israel today.
The Parkland families, the people of Broward, and the broader Florida community want accountability. But I think just as important, or more important, they want the problems fixed going forward. And in their own ways, these Parkland families have all worked hard so that others won't have to experience the horrors of losing a child. As governor, I don't want to leave it to the future to do what we can do today. And so appointing Sergeant Gregory Toney as the new sheriff of Broward, I believe, is the way to look forward, to bring leadership, competence, and accountability to the department.
And to the technical side of this, in terms of the governor, what he was saying is that these security failures that led to, he believes, to the tragedy at Parkland. He believes that the former sheriff was negligent in his duties and carrying out his responsibilities heading BSO, and he was also incompetent. Those two specific items are things out of the state statute that give the governor the authority to take this kind of action, even though the former sheriff, Scott Israel, had not been charged with any kind of crime or any felony. One of the parents came forward and said what was crucial in terms of making sure that the former sheriff was no longer here is that he changed the policy to give a deputy the ability to decide whether or not they would engage an active shooter, and that caused to his daughter's death. We will continue to follow this throughout the course of the night here. Some of the top law enforcement officers here that served with the former sheriff, they've decided to move on. We're live at the BSO headquarters. Willard Shepard, NBC6 News.
Willard, thanks. And here's what we know about the new man in charge at BSO. Gregory Toney is 40 years old, has a master's degree in criminal justice. He owns a security company specializing in active shooter training. He previously worked with Coral Springs Police, and Toney is SWAT certified and has experience with emergency medicine.
Scott Israel wasting no time sharing his side of the story. You saw him speak to reporters right here on NBC6 just after the governor's announcement.
NBC6 investigator Tony Pipitone was there. He's live right now at New Mount Olive Baptist Church in Fort Lauderdale. Tony?
Yeah, the sheriff stood here with his wife by his side, surrounded by faith leaders and other supporters, and said the governor's actions were about politics and campaign promises and not about the facts of what happened on the ground in Parkland on February 14th, and he vowed to fight for his job.
Let's understand the suspension for what it really is: a massive political power grab by the governor to subvert the will of the Broward County voter. I understand it's easier to say suspend Sheriff Israel than it is to address the real problem. The problem around this nation of gun violence. No one was suspended after the Pulse shooting. No one was suspended after the 2013 mass shooting at an apartment complex in Miami-Dade County. No one was suspended in 2017 after the mass shooting at an Orlando factory. The difference? I spoke out about gun violence. Let me be clear. I wholeheartedly reject the statements in the governor's executive order as lacking both legal merit and a valid factual basis. There was no wrongdoing on my part. I served the county honorably. I will continue to do that. False narratives may continue, but not in a court of law. In a court of law, only the facts matter. I intend to vigorously fight this unjustified suspension, both in court and before the Florida Senate.
So you notice the sheriff, now suspended sheriff, not in uniform. That's because there is, as of now, a new sheriff in Broward County, but a court or the Florida Senate could eventually restore him to the position that he won election to twice. Now, one other thing, in the governor's announcement today, it didn't just talk about Parkland, it also brought up the airport shooting at Fort Lauderdale Airport several years ago, where several people died, and used that as another example of what he says is incompetence and neglect of duty. Reporting live in Fort Lauderdale, Tony Pipitone, NBC6 News.
Tony, thanks. And this isn't the end of the road for Scott Israel. There are a couple of ways he could respond to today's decision. As he just mentioned, he could decide to challenge it in court or in the Florida Senate.
Okay, so if he goes to court, he could argue the suspension doesn't justify his removal from office because it doesn't have sufficient evidence. If he goes to the Senate with this, the governor would then appoint a prosecutor and the case would then be heard in committee, which would then make a recommendation to the Senate. If
he's reinstated, he would get back pay. If not, he's removed from office.
Our people in Broward County have been calling for Scott Israel to resign since the Parkland shooting.
NBC6 education reporter Ari Adzer is live right now at BSO with how they're reacting to the announcement. Ari?
Well, Jackie, I spoke to several of the families who lost loved ones in the Stoneman Douglas tragedy. If you watched our live coverage of the news conference, you saw Ryan Petty, Debbie Hickson, Andrew Pollack, Tony Montalto, Max Schachter all spoke standing next to the governor. And as far as we know, among the 17 families, this is unanimously supported to remove the sheriff from office. But none of them are celebrating today because nothing brings their loved ones back. As the MSD Safety Commission revealed failure after failure by law enforcement, specifically by the Broward Sheriff's Office, Commission member Ryan Petty, who lost his daughter Alana in the massacre, came to this conclusion. We need new leadership at BSO, desperately. BSO failed on February 14th in a massive way. They failed at the Fort Lauderdale airport shooting, didn't seem to learn the lesson, so it's clear we need new leadership. I'm pleased to see the governor step in and make very needed changes. Fred Guttenberg's daughter, Jamie, went to school on February 14th and was among the 17 who never came home.
I'm still going to drive out of here today with this image of my daughter in my head running down the hallway from an active shooter. And so I don't get rid of that. I'm pleased that this is happening, but I don't feel good. That's the sad part.
The MSD Commission found fault with 9 different deputies' actions. Their actions, along with Scott Israel's failed and inadequate policies, procedures, and training, has made Broward County less safe.
But Sheriff Israel's supporters point out that the MSD Safety Commission did not recommend his removal from office. Joe Geller is a state representative from Hallandale.
FDLE is still investigating. Why don't we wait and see what FDLE has to say? Ultimately, the judgment on Scott Israel should be one that's passed by the voters because they have the ability to take someone from office. I just think that this is, it seems to me to be not warranted. It seems to me that people are looking for a scapegoat.
In response to that sentiment, Tony Montalto of the Stand with Parkland group told us earlier today that this was a systemic failure by BSO. There were failures on so many levels that the MSD Commission uncovered that the buck has to stop with the leader of the organization. And Fred Guttenberg said at the news conference earlier today that 1 second perhaps might have saved his daughter. In 1 second, she might have made it into the stairwell to safety, implying that if BSO had responded sooner, perhaps his daughter would be alive today. We're live at the Sheriff's Office headquarters. Ari Odzer, NBC6 News.
Is here. Ari, thank you. And obviously, we're going to continue to follow this story. You get the very latest developments anytime on the NBC6.com website, as well as the NBC6 app. And of course, we're going to forward the story for tonight at 11.
And this is just the latest move by Governor Ron DeSantis on just his 4th day in office. The governor was sworn in Tuesday, and Wednesday he appointed the first Hispanic woman to the state Supreme Court. Yesterday, he announced a plan to protect water quality in Florida and asked the South Florida Water Management District members to resign. This morning, he suspended a superintendent in Okaloosa. And coming up a little later, we'll tell you about another action he took this morning by the State Clemency Board.
The search is on tonight in Miami Gardens for a missing teen and an armed and dangerous man. Take a good look at these two here. He is wanted for shooting 3 members of the teen's family, and police think he has the girl with him. NBC6 anchor Johnny Archer live right now in Miami Gardens with more on this drama. Johnny?
Yeah, Key. So police believe that the mother, the uncle, and an aunt all came to this location looking for that missing 15-year-old relative. But when they got there or here, they were greeted by the suspect, who police say started shooting all 3 of them. And tonight, police believe that 15-year-old girl might be with the shooter.
The suspect is considered armed and dangerous. He shot 3 people this morning.
Miami Gardens police are searching for this man, who they say shot 3 people along Bunch Park Drive and 23rd Avenue Friday morning.
The victims were transported to a local hospital, non-life-threatening injuries. They're expected to survive.
Police say the victims are the mother, uncle, and aunt of 15-year-old Janiyah Johnson. The 5'5", 120-pound girl is reported missing out of Miami.
So this morning, at about 9 o'clock this morning, 3 people came to this address here, 23rd Avenue and Bunch Park Drive, looking for a 15-year-old missing girl. When they arrived on scene, they were shot at by a suspect that was possibly with the young lady.
Police say the suspect fled the scene after the shooting. The victims were taken to the hospital and are expected to be okay. As the family recovers, police continue their search for the shooter.
He's extremely dangerous, so we're asking anyone, if you see him, please give us a call. Call 911. Our officers will be in the area all day until he's located.
And you can see the officers are still on the scene right now. They have the area blocked off some 9 hours after the shooting. Police still looking for that suspect and hoping that someone from the public can help identify who that suspect is and help bring that person to justice and hopefully help bring that 15-year-old missing girl back home safe. Reporting live from Miami Gardens, Johnny Archer, NBC6 News.
All right, Johnny, thanks very much. Breaking news right now from the Miami Dolphins camp. NFL Network is reporting the Fins are expected to hire this guy, New England defensive coordinator Brian Flores, as the team's next head coach. The Patriots, so they're in the playoffs. So that means Miami cannot officially hire Flores until New England gets eliminated or goes to another Super Bowl. Flores has worked for the Patriots for the past 11 years. The Dolphins fired Adam Gase after a disappointing 7-9 season. Miami has missed the playoffs in each of the past 2 seasons.
That's a big get.
It is, yeah.
Well, the showdown in Washington keeping the government shut down, and you could feel it the next time you head to the airport.
Yeah, we're going to show you the changes they're making there at MIA to cope with the cutbacks.
Plus, there's a new face coming to the sidelines for Miami. We'll tell you about the person Manny Diaz has tapped to lead the Canes offense.
And a free trial that turns out to be anything but free. I'm consumer investigator Sasha Jones tonight. NBC6 responds to the new warnings about the common tricks luring people to buy.
Outside right now, beautiful conditions as the sun is going down. Our temperatures a little bit warmer this time around, into the lower 70s and upper 60s as we dig deeper into our Friday evening. The weekend, quite a bit warmer, but another touch of some cool air on the way. Talk about the timing in your 7-day forecast just ahead.